Welcome to Brandstorm, the podcast that talks to the people behind America's brands. I'm Dan Trzynski, president of Platypus Advertising and Design.
And I'm Nancy Christopher, PR director at Platypus. A report by the Wisconsin Policy Forum indicates that more retirees and fewer young people could create a workforce dilemma for the state in the coming years. The Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce, or MMAC, has partnered with the Milwaukee 7, both economic development groups, to help companies in the region attract, retain, and train workers in jobs that offer growth potential. Here to tell us more about the workforce issues facing Wisconsin and what is being done to help businesses now and in the future is Susan Koehn, Vice President of the Talent and Industry Partnership and point person for this initiative. Thanks for coming to Brandstorm today.
Thank you for having me.
Hi.
So let's start by learning a little bit about you, Susan. What's your background and qualifications for this position?
Sure. My background is in workforce development. I have a business degree, but my background is in workforce development. And I was introduced to the Milwaukee 7 and regional economic development a number of years ago when I was part of a large $5 million initiative in southeast Wisconsin to break down sort of the walls between economic and workforce development. There was growing recognition that talent was a key driver of economic growth. And largely those two systems operated completely independently, as if one had nothing to do with the other. And economic development was focused, entirely on corporate attraction projects and building infrastructure, and they call it smokestacks and bricks and mortar projects.
Right.
And then, workforce development was in the business of training people, and the two didn't talk to each other. So you hear about the skills gap, and industry would blame education for not producing the right kinds of workers that were rightly skilled to fill the jobs in demand. And education would look back at business and say, well, you're not telling us what you need. There really were these walls between the two. So this initiative in about 2007, 2008 was the first attempt in the region to sort of break down those walls and have the conversations between the two silos and change that narrative.
So can you tell us more about the missions of the MMAC and the Milwaukee 7 and how the two married together on this project?
So the MMAC is the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce. It's a chamber of commerce membership-based organization. Milwaukee 7 is the Regional Economic Development Consortium for Southeast Wisconsin. And the 7 stands for the 7 counties that surround Milwaukee. So Racine, Kenosha, Walworth counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington counties, and Milwaukee make up the Milwaukee 7. Milwaukee 7 came into existence in 2005 when the region's economic development players realized that they were, in many cases, poaching from one another and really not bringing new companies, corporate expansion, investment dollars into the region proper, that we were playing sort of a zero-sum game, and that it would benefit us all to collaborate and to treat economic development like we're all winners if a company locates in southeast Wisconsin.
Right.
That there are ripple benefits, our labor force lives across the region. MMAC played a critical role in founding the M7 back in 2005, and we work together all the time. In fact, we actually share office space and some staff. And both organizations were working in the talent space. The MMAC, again, with a membership focus, was responding to what they were hearing from their members over and over again, from the smallest business to the largest corporation with a global footprint. And then at the economic development side, at the M7, we were hearing the same thing when we were going out looking to attract companies to the area or speaking with companies about their ability to grow or expand in the area. It was the same message about talent being a concern, a constraint, the thing that was keeping them up at night, and the uncertainty around the ability to grow and expand because of the shortage of talent.
Let's talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Policy Forum report, its conclusions. What were the takeaways from this report, and how serious is it for Wisconsin businesses?
So some of the takeaways, I think, were a surprise to many folks, but we have been seeing this for several years because demographics, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Birth rates are birth rates, and
Right.
we knew that, there was a shortage of individuals in Generation X. We had the large baby boom generation. We had a baby bust situation, and there were, 2 million fewer Gen X than there were of baby boomers. And we started seeing that, it manifest itself in different ways. And certain businesses were seeing lower demand. And then when it really hit the workforce, it came as a surprise to many. I think that the effect of that was somewhat masked by the recession.
Sure, there was just
downturn we had.
Job loss anyway, right.
Right. And I think, companies were sort of hunkered down trying to survive the recession. And when it was finally time to wake up and they started feeling that, that they could open up the gates and start hiring again, it was like they woke up to a new paradigm that, wow, I used to be able to post a job and in came 100 resumes, and I'm seeing maybe 3 or 4, and they're not remotely qualified for this position. Some of the findings from the policy reform report weren't surprising necessarily to those of us in economic development, but I think it confirmed what the individual businesses are seeing on the ground. And then some of the strategies that they talked about were things that, we're helping our members and investors work through how they can best address.
Well, I was just listening to those figures. That's pretty dramatic to go from hundreds in the mailbox to 3 or 4 and they're not even remotely qualified. I mean, that's crazy.
It is. So we've done some research to sort of quantify the challenge of this, and this was in partnership with Manpower Group, so a pretty reputable organization. We found that the workforce gap in the M7 region, again, those 7 counties of southeast Wisconsin, will hit around 38,000 job openings by 2021. Those are unfilled job openings that we expect to have in our region in 2021 across industries. That's a significant number. So that helps us put our arms around the challenge that we're facing. And then we took
a city.
That's a city.
It's like 5 times the size of Hills Corners,
right,
where I live.
And that doesn't take into account then that second layer of the mismatch of skills to job openings. Just because we have 38,000 job openings and maybe 38,000 unemployed people, that doesn't mean that they will be a match for those roles. So the skills gap compounds the people gap that we have, the true demographic gap that we have.
That is a scary scenario, because what happens to those companies when they have those openings and can't fill them? Do they move, close? Do they, what happens?
There are diminishing returns to that strategy. That has certainly been a strategy in the past. We've seen offshoring. We've seen the effects of globalization. The other strategy that has been a more short-term reaction and then is showing diminishing returns now as well is poaching from each other. I'll either go further out or I will poach from my neighbor. So we saw some dynamics where, let's offer a couple dollars more an hour, and, you see some short-term shifts. But again, at the end of the day, that's also a zero-sum game.
Right.
No one wins. What was really interesting to us was we dove deeper with Manpower into the supply of labor in the area, because we understand, yes, the demographics are driving this largely, but we're hearing that there are pockets of our region where there are abundant workers. They're on the sidelines, or for whatever reason are ineligible to work, or they're not participating in the workforce. They're not even looking for work, or they may be underemployed. So can we put some numbers around that and give our companies like a glimmer of hope? There may be help out there. And we found that there really are almost 300,000 people in the M7 region that have a high school diploma but no post-secondary credentials. So they have no post-high school, either a certificate or an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. And those individuals, if you have a job description that calls for a degree, associate degree or credential, do you realize that you're literally boxing out almost 300,000 people from being eligible for your job? So that's one way that a company could immediately today look at how they could leverage, larger talent pools by simply taking a closer look at your eligibility requirements and really asking, does this job require this degree, this credential, or could this be done by someone who has experience and skills that bring to bear?
And are we willing to bring people
Training.
on and train them on the job?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Is there anything we could be doing as businesses to work with education to increase that labor force?
Absolutely. The first thing I always say is it costs a lot less to retain an existing customer as it does to acquire a new one. That's a tenet of sales.
No question.
And the same thing applies to employees. It costs a heck of a lot less to retain an existing employee and upskill and develop them along a career pathway than it does to acquire a new one. The best offense is a good defense.
It always is.
Right. So when we work with companies, we start with that. We start with, how can you improve your ability to keep and retain and upskill your existing workforce, and then backfill with fresh talent out of the education pipeline. We are extremely fortunate in Southeast Wisconsin. We have a critical mass of excellent higher ed institutions, and the K-12 system is pretty excellent across the board as well. And they have made strides in recent years to collaborate more so that students are starting to earn college credit in high school, so that students are able to articulate an associate's degree into a bachelor's program seamlessly without having to retake a lot of the classes that they had to take at the technical college level. So we're seeing that work really well. We are also seeing greater communication between business and the education pipeline in terms of these are the jobs in demand, and then these are the skills that we're looking for. Education has really opened the door to business to inform what the curriculum and the programs are that are developing talent for their future workforce, and that has been received very well by education. There's an openness on both sides that's really great.
I think
they
have to work together because as jobs are evolving and skill sets are changing, it's difficult for education to keep up and know, because especially the way tech is changing almost every type of position.
Right. There's this stat that we throw out all the time that 60% of jobs don't exist yet.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Right.
60% of the jobs that will be, and then how do you train for that? How
Right.
does K-12 even know where to begin to train for those? The other really key piece that industry can assist with in the education pipeline is providing a real-world context for learning by providing experiential learning opportunities, internships, job shadows, company tours, all manner of ways in which we can bring in students to the workplace and show them how what they're learning in the classroom can be applied in the real world, or vice versa, how we can have industry push into the classroom and provide a context for what's being taught that day. The number of requests that we get from classrooms for sponsors of classroom projects, for industry guest speakers, for openings to visit and job shadow and intern and
internships
youth apprenticeships exploded in the last few years, and we're very, very happy to make those connections. That is such a win-win, especially as the older students in post-secondary, college students. A college intern has about a 68 to 75% chance of converting to a direct hire. It's bona fide early talent acquisition, and everyone should be doing it.
It's how my son got a job.
That's it.
I'm wondering, too, the millennials are a very creative group. They're very entrepreneurial. I've noticed that they come up with different ideas, different services that they can provide to our world. And they're going more that route than maybe manufacturing and some of these jobs that were more traditional for the baby boomers. Has that been a problem for the workforce as well?
That's a great question. I think it's really important that even our legacy companies and our legacy industries in Wisconsin show the innovation potential for the jobs within. And that's something that goes back to what I said about experiential learning. You push into the classroom to show that by working at Rockwell Automation, for example, you'll be part of connected systems and the frontier of Industry 4.0. That's a much more exciting proposition than, come work in what you think your past of manufacturing was. Yes, and we're seeing colleges and K-12 school districts respond as well to that trend by having entrepreneurial skills accelerators. There are a number of programs across the region where students are working on real-world projects provided by real companies, and they're pitching solutions that in some cases are actually used by the company in the end.
Let's talk a little bit about the new initiative that you all recently launched. I believe it's called Career X. What is that about?
So the purpose of Career X is to increase the positive perception of career opportunities in advanced manufacturing in Southeast Wisconsin and grow the pipeline to fill the large number of forecasted job openings. I talked about that there were 38,000 job openings projected across the region in 2021. Manufacturing has really hit the hardest. They will see that number for manufacturing is just over 4,000. And the increase in that gap goes up by 44% in the next 3 years. There's some work to be done there. And part of the issue is that the pipeline to manufacturing has dried up for whatever reason. Only 1 in 3 of Americans would encourage their children to pursue a manufacturing career.
Do you think that's a perception problem of what manufacturing is
Sure, absolutely.
today? Because it's like, okay, well, I want my kid to be a doctor or a lawyer and go to college, get a degree. I don't want to be in manufacturing. It sounds dirty, grimy, but it's not that anymore.
This could be another 3-hour podcast to talk through the perceptions of manufacturing. We've done a ton of research on this, and we've benchmarked the perceptions. And there's a lot of national research as well. But the key that drove the development of this Career X program is that those familiar with manufacturing are nearly 2 times as likely to encourage children to pursue a manufacturing career. So in many cases, it's simply a lack of awareness. The other key point was that Americans believe that targeted programs would increase interest in manufacturing careers. 67% of Americans believe that internships and more apprenticeship programs for young people would increase interest in that career path. So that's what we decided to do, was develop a program that sort of first introduces students and teachers and their influencers to the opportunities within manufacturing, and then provides a series of experiences where first teachers are coming in and visiting the facilities of our 14 partners and understanding the opportunities for their students, and conversely, the skills that they will, that they would need to be successful in the future of work. And then later in the program, the students accompany the teacher on another visit to see for themselves. And the teachers are part of designing what that experience looks like to be the most impactful for their students. The teachers are just as important in this Career X exchange, because the challenge for manufacturing is image, and the teachers are the closest to what their students' interests are. And we're leveraging that knowledge to help the companies design the experiences for the greatest impact. And lastly, what it's all designed to sort of move to is, at the end of the day, that students and these companies will be matched up for those more high-touch, more impactful experiences like internships or a youth apprenticeship or even direct employment. Many of our business partners offer summer jobs, part-time work that could lead to direct hire after graduation.
So which industries do you see as having the most potential growth for the Milwaukee 7 or the southeastern Wisconsin region?
Well, we talk a lot about the legacy of manufacturing in this area, and it's undeniable. It's nearly 20% of our GDP in southeast Wisconsin. We hope that never goes away. But what I see as the future is really where technology intersects with our legacy industries. So we also have a concentration in southeast Wisconsin, financial services, excellent healthcare systems. So there's this growing tech ecosystem that,
the water district is
water
interesting.
District, absolutely. Smart manufacturing, we have a legacy in that with, again, with Rockwell Automation and Connected Systems and Johnson Controls, where tech intersects with smart manufacturing, where tech intersects with financial services. You may have seen Northwestern Mutual is working to grow the technology talent pool in Milwaukee and sort of brand Milwaukee as a tech hub. And it sounds, an insurance company. They're
financial services.
They're a tech company now.
Sure.
And they see that the future of their fortunes are in getting the best technology talent. Same thing applies to healthcare. A partner in the tech hub has been Advocate Aurora, because again, they see that that's probably the differentiator for their business going forward, is how to utilize technology. And let's face it, technology is a buffer against the workforce shortage as well. We've turned the corner on whether automation is a necessary evil or not. It's necessary, and it will go a long way to solve the skills gap and the workforce shortage. And early indications show that far from replacing jobs, robotics and automation actually levels up the skills and the earning potential of roles that interface with it, and does not result in lost jobs.
Are there any plans to bring this technology, robotics, everything, into the classroom a lot earlier? And the same thing, I think, with the trade side of things. We should be letting the kids experience more of what it is like to be a plumber and a...
Yeah, shop class seems to have gone away from when I was a kid.
Right.
They'd teach you how to weld, and they'd teach you how to bend some metal. And
while I was learning how to bake a cake and make a little skirt.
Right.
In the home economics class.
God, we're old.
So we're big fans of what's called academic and career planning in Wisconsin, and it was a mandate. It was legislative action. What academic and career planning is that school districts in Wisconsin are required to provide academic as well as career planning resources and supports and opportunities to students starting in 6th grade and going all the way through 12th grade. And it was a response to the business community's concern that students were not learning about the opportunities and that everybody was being tracked for the same 4-year college pathway, right? It honestly has been a game changer in the region. And what the goal of academic and career planning is really that students are aware of the growing opportunities, the career paths that are prevalent in their local labor market, and that they are provided experiences or opportunities to see and go out and visit and hear from business partners in their surrounding area. And what that has led to is those tours and those job shadows and those experiential learning opportunities that show students. MMAC runs a program called Be the Spark, which brings 7th grade students from Milwaukee Public Schools on business tours. And it's not just a tour
Yeah, I've
of
heard about this. This
the
is
business. Cool. It's a true immersion in the world of work. You know, they speak to every business unit and they hear feedback on employability skills and communication skills and those soft skills that we hear are more and more important as technology changes so rapidly. What that provides is, you can't be what you can't see. And that provides at least that first, I never knew that was an opportunity for me. I never knew we had that in Southeast Wisconsin. Just the other day, one of our Career X partners, Astronautics, was presenting to a group of school districts that we had assembled. And hardly any of them knew that we had an aeronautical engineering in our region. And they were pretty excited to hear that there was aerospace and there was aeronautical engineering. A lot of students are interested in that, and they didn't know that we had that in Southeast Wisconsin. Computer science, you asked about, the skills earlier. There's a real push in our region to increase the number of schools that are offering computer science programs. Largely, computer science is being seen as that critical building block that without that, in high school, you may not be able to really get on these high-flying career pathways that will pay off in the future. And too few of our school districts have computer science programming. So there's a program called TEALS. That's a Microsoft Philanthropies program that's housed at the MMAC. And they've been working over the last 2 years and will continue to work to partner with local school districts in the Milwaukee region to increase the number of CS classes and the teachers that are trained to teach that. There's a skills gap in teaching as well.
Sure.
That's compounding this. There's also been a resurgence of career and technical education in Southeast Wisconsin. To your point about where was shop class,
right.
Well, it sort of did go away for about 30 to 35 years, but it's coming back. And I have dozens of stories of districts that 5 years ago didn't, return a phone call from an industry partner that are now, have a student-run enterprise that's supplying parts for the same company.
Sure.
It's pretty exciting.
So let's talk about some of our immediate needs. What are we doing exactly to attract people into our state? I know in advertising we always have to have a point of differentiation with our products and stuff.
Right.
What's different about Wisconsin than Illinois or Michigan?
So I don't know if you're familiar with the Think, Make, Happen campaign that the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation launched maybe a year or two ago. And that's what they did. They did research to determine not just what differentiated Wisconsin, but where were the likeliest targets? Who would be the warm leads that might consider a move? Would we be foolish to spend our resources trying to recruit people from Silicon Valley? Maybe. It would be quite a shock.
Or San Diego on a day like today.
Exactly, on a day like today. So I think very smartly they helped us target across the state a couple of different talent pools that might be more inclined to relocate to Wisconsin. And one of these I didn't know anything about. We've targeted returning service members, veterans, and I didn't know this, but apparently Wisconsin has one of the most generous packages of supports and incentives and free education for returning service members and their families above almost any other state. So that was a really important finding that WEDC helped us identify. And then they developed materials and a whole campaign and strategy to reach service members, going as far as to go to bases where service members were being separated and recruiting them to Wisconsin. Companies in Wisconsin are going along with WEDC on those visits and actually recruiting directly returning service members. Another group that WEDC has helped us target is alumni of Wisconsin's institutions. Let's get the kids back that left us, and
right.
It's time to come back now. Wisconsin is a great place to raise a
kids,
family,
right? Good schools.
And be close to your parents who are maybe aging in place. There are a lot of compelling reasons to come back home, especially with our economy booming. So there are some ways that we could show them what they missed while they were gone, and that this may not be the Wisconsin, the Milwaukee that you remember when you were in high school, but we certainly have changed and we have lots of opportunities for you. And then lastly, what they call Midwest millennials. And again, that's the individual that is maybe already in a colder climate that wouldn't experience that shock of their first winter in Wisconsin. So we're talking about comparable metropolitan areas like Columbus and Detroit and Minneapolis. And WEDC has developed collateral materials and digital materials that can accompany either one of those targets.
Do you have any recommendations for companies trying to keep workers that they already have?
Yeah, right. We talked earlier about millennials, and what I've learned over time is that every generation ultimately wants the same things. There really isn't that much difference between us at the end of the day. And what we want is to be appreciated and to be able to contribute and add value and see purpose in what we do every day. And we want opportunities to advance and to continue to grow. Companies in our area are investing in fancy office buildings and amenities, and they're offering services, and you can bring your dog. But what still holds true is that what will help someone achieve what they want in life, whether it's a work-life balance, flexibility, the ability to be home for their kids and to, co-parent successfully, those things never changed, whatever generation it is.
As head of the Talent and Industry Partnership, what excites you the most about this initiative, and have you seen any successes so far?
I think what excites me the most about this is the data is so alarming, right? The challenge is so urgent facing us that people are now willing to try new things and experiment and fail. And there's a little more safety around risk, right? We're feeling like we can start to collaborate and innovate and try new things that we haven't thought of before. I'm starting to see the recognition that poaching is a zero-sum game. That really the long-term play is that we work together to grow the pool for all and to develop all the human capital in our region and to make it easier for all of us to fish individually from that pool at the end of the day. Tim Sheehy talks about businesses need to farm more than they need to fish for talent right now, and I think that's what the dynamic is.
Good analogy. I like that.
Yeah, especially anything to do with fishing for me.
So for those interested in your initiative, what's the best way to connect with the various groups?
How do people get involved?
Or is there just one central place we could go? Because it seems like there's a lot of groups out there trying to collaborate.
We've done a lot of work to sort of map that and try to make sense of it because, yes, the biggest challenge for our business partners, the members of MMAC and M7's investors is, I know I need help. I don't exactly know who that is or how to find them, but there's a lot of noise. And, this is a good problem to have. There are a lot of resources. There are a lot of partners for you, whether it's higher ed or K-12 or workforce development agencies that really want to work with you and solve your problems and help you source and retain and develop talent. But for many companies, we're leaner than ever and it's overwhelming. There's a lot of noise. So we think a key role for us is to act as sort of a clearinghouse, a concierge, a gatekeeper of sorts, and we can help our members navigate and make sense of really first what their needs are, and then secondly, once that's identified, who the best partners and resources might be. So that's sort of the individual level that an individual member of MMAC or become a member of MMAC and you'll find a way to help you. But secondly, there are different strategies that only a group of employers can take together on behalf of their industry. And that's really where the M7 side of the partnership comes into play, because M7's reach is broader and there are different resources at our disposal. So there's great value in convening employers in a sector-based way, that they can share common challenges related to their specific skills that are in demand and in short supply. And we can work together to develop strategies and new programs like Career X that try to address that at a larger scale.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'd recommend to visit our website at MMAC.org or to contact me via email. My name again is Susan Koehn, and it's SKOEHN at MKE7.com.
Are you on LinkedIn?
I am. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I use Twitter more, and the handle there is at MKE7Talent.
Great.
Excellent. Thanks for coming here today, Susan. It was really an eye-opener to see what's
it's a
what's
little
ahead.
scary, but if you don't recognize that you have a problem, you can't do anything to solve it.
Thank you.
Good luck. And if you have any questions for Dan or me about today's episode, please feel free to contact us on our LinkedIn pages. If you'd like what you've heard today, please don't forget to share, review, and subscribe to Brandstorm.
This is Dan Trzynski along with Nancy Christopher at Platypus Advertising and Design, an awesome company that creates perceptions that influence choice. We hope you'll join us next week for another episode of Brandstorm.